What's going on, everybody? It's that time again, the AllSooners podcast on this wonderful Wednesday, July 6th, 2022. 59 days. That's it till the start of the OU football season, OU UTEP on September 3rd. We're inside of 2 months. It's starting to feel real. Big 12 Media Days are a week from today.
7 days.
Guys, summer's over basically already, essentially, is how it feels. How are we doing? Ryan, you're all moved into your new place. Should we start there?
Yeah, I mean, it's no longer coming to you from Norman. We're in Moore, technically. So shout out 19th Street. I'm excited to be back in your traffic nightmare once again. The fast food's worth it on 19th for the traffic, though, especially after 11 when I get most of my work done. So, yeah, I was just telling you guys, everything's in the front door of the apartment. Now it's on me to clean it, organize it, all that stuff. But the heavy lifting's done. I can just relax and do it, one corner at a time. We'll get there.
I have but one question, Ryan. How's your Wi-Fi?
It is way
strong,
better than the old Wi-Fi at the parental's house.
So, yeah, we got a new location. Josh Callaway in Oklahoma City, John Hoover in Tulsa, and Ryan Chapman in Moore. That's going to take some getting used to. I've said Norman on like 60 straight shows. So,
yeah.
And a bit of an adjustment, but that's cool. Obviously, getting to the new place. Moving blows, but when you're in and settled, it's awesome. And you're like, all right, settling. I've done it a couple times last few years, and it feels good when you're there. The actual act of it stinks, and you did it like in the dead of the heat. It's like over 100 every day right now, so I imagine that was probably a little bit of a grind.
Not great.
It's blazing right now. Thankfully, Big 12 Media Days is an indoor thing because, good Lord, like 105 down there. It's going to be toasty. But yeah, so it's good that you're in there and we press on. The summer rolls on July 6th. Like I said, already under 2 months till the season starts. 1 week from today until Big 12 Media Days. Obviously, we'll do a show next week, either before Media Days or after or there. I don't know how we'll figure that out later. But what are we looking for? Today we just found out the attendees. I can read them off real quick. Obviously, we know Brent Venables. It is back to 4 players, which is nice. Last year was only 2. The year before was weird virtual world with 2020. So nice to get it back to kind of the full-blown thing. We have 4 players who you and I were kind of guessing at this on the drive from Omaha. We had a lot of time to kill on those Omaha drives. We were kind of talking about what players might they send to Media Days. We both said Gabriel for sure. We liked Marvin Mims. We talked about Woody Washington a little bit, and he is in there. The surprise is Ethan Downs, the young defensive end, gets in there. Really cool. He's a great talker. We got to see him in the spring a little bit. So, but just some thoughts, I guess, on the player list. People always overanalyze the players that they send. And just kind of, I don't know, just general thoughts on Media Days next week, which is kind of crazy. We're already here.
We talked about this on my show this morning, and that is Ethan Downs is really kind of a company man. He's going to stick to the company line. He's going to say what, and that's not a bad thing. He's very polished. He's represents himself and his school very well. He represents his team very well. So I think he's the perfect choice. Obviously, you need Dillon Gabriel. You need the face of your program, Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback. Marvin Mims is probably my favorite talker on this team, just in terms of engaging you in a one-on-one conversation. While you're in a group setting, he can look you in the eye and he can express himself adequately and get across his point and then move on to the next guy and do the same exact thing with them. So, and then Woody Washington, kind of in a lot of ways, maybe one of the more accomplished players on this defense. We were talking about maybe the possibility of Deshaun White representing that other defensive spot.
Yeah.
But I think Woody Washington, another very engaging, great talker, kind of a sparkling personality when he gets to talking. So, yeah, I think Mike Houck and the OU media team did a great job of picking these 4 guys out.
Yeah, no real shock. I just was I had thought Deshaun White would be the guy on defense, right? Been around the longest, kind of the linebacker who's worked under now Venables and Roof all offseason, all that stuff. But it's not reading into anything or anything like that. That's just who I thought would have been the first defensive guy. But I'm interested to see if we know Ethan Downs is awesome, like to talk to. I'm interested to see if Brent really wanted an Oklahoma kid to be out there representing the Oklahoma program. We know. Yeah. Now, we'll get into this in a little bit with recruiting, that it hasn't gone Oklahoma's way in-state currently for just some of the guys they've kind of been poking around at. nothing to be concerned about either. But we know that the coaching staff's been in Oklahoma high schools. It's big for them to be present. Who better than Weatherford's own Ethan Downs to roll out there and be one of those 4 guys representing the program on the biggest preseason stage they have, and until we kick the ball off.
In addition to the players, also shout out the fact that they're bringing 4, because you didn't. Thankfully, it's back to 4, but also they didn't have to. A couple of teams aren't bringing 4; they're only bringing 3. I think Baylor and Iowa State are only bringing 3. So nice we get that 4th guy. Always nice middle of summer, obviously, to get to just hear from as many as possible. It's been so long since the spring, and so that'll be very nice next week. We also got the schedule. OU is day 2. They've been bumped. They've been, who of you know better than me, it seems like they've been day 1 forever. And now they're day 2 along with Texas. Is that coincidental or not? I don't know. But we're going to get day 2. I assume it's just so they could make sure that I have extra work on my birthday, which is next Thursday, the 14th. Bump it again. I was thinking, well, it'll be the second day. OU won't go. We had a little less of a load. No. OU got moved over. They are the first team, which is nice. Venables is up first at like 10 a.m., but OU will be on day 2. So a little bit of an adjustment there for us with the schedule next week in Arlington. But that's going to be, I look forward to media days. It's always a good time. And just it kind of feels like the unofficial kind of start of football in a way.
I get so tired of the narrative. It's a lazy narrative put together by lazy, cynical people. And that is, this is the biggest waste of time. You don't get anything of value at Big 12 Media Days. No, you get a lot of content that you can generate for the next month and a half while you're, being shut out of practice or something happens and you only get 4 practice days to at training camp. I love Big 12 Media Days. And the week after that, I'm going to love SEC Media Days. Going down to Atlanta for that. So is what you get, is everything a one-on-one gold mine? Of course not. Don't be an idiot. Of course, you're never going to get that in a big setting like this, but don't say there's nothing of value at Big 12 Media Days. You can get conversations with a lot of the players. All 4 of these guys are great talkers. They're all going to be talking at the same time. I'm hoping that we have all 4 of us down there, as well as the 3 of us plus intern Ross. Hopefully we'll be down there. You get to talk to coaches at the podium, and that's usually on the fairly worthless side. There's not much to be gleaned. Sometimes they say something like, Ryan, you asked a question, I think, last year that got a pretty good response. I think your co-host Chisholm asked another question that got a pretty good response. But most times the coaches give you these questions or these answers to your questions in a more intimate setting. It's called the breakout setting, where they sit at a desk and 10, 20, 30 people gather around them and ask them questions as much as you can. That's where the really good stuff comes from.
I'm just most looking forward to, guys, Brent gets what? Is it 15 minutes this year at the podium?
Yeah.
Is it 15? It's usually 20.
Hey, either way, 4.5 questions, over under 4.5 questions from everybody, because it'll be Brent's
20.
first chance to address the kind of the Big 12 Media Day setting. It'll be his first chance, not around just the Oklahoma beat or like national reporters coming in. I think the breakout session is going to be a ton of fun, but I would expect we get an all-timer from Brent up there at the podium session of it, and then we'll get the breakout. Also, Sark was so calm, cool, collected last year. The season was then on fire, but he's winning recruiting season early on, as Texas often does. I'm interested what kind of Sark we get. Do we get White Van Sark yet again?
Sark week. Yeah, 10:35 to 10:55 is the Brent session. So he is listed for 20 minutes. So about 3 questions or 4 maybe.
Opening statement or no? It's an important thing to know. Is there an opening statement or no?
An opening statement, definitely, 100%. He's going to give you the state of the Sooner program in 19 and a half minutes before he takes the first question.
It's going to be incredible. We'll see if he drops any little, like Lincoln last year, our second home, any little just snarky. And then they didn't make championship game the first time, like 6 years after that age poorly. But then, yeah, I mean, media days. I mean, it gets everybody in one place. I mean, it's an opportunity. Obviously, we're looking forward to talking to Brent and the players for the first time in a long time. But also, we can go talk to Mike Gundy, Dave Aranda. Like, we can go talk to the other teams. You don't really ever have that chance, literally ever, during the season. Even when you're playing that team, the post games are at the same time. Like, you just don't get the opportunity. So this is that chance for everybody in the Big 12 to kind of all intermingle. So obviously, I think there's a lot of value in media days. And so look forward to that next week in Arlington. It will be there. Lots of coverage certainly coming out of Cowboy Stadium, AT&T Stadium next Wednesday and Thursday down in Texas. Looking forward to it. So elsewhere, we got a lot of recruiting to talk about. There's been a whole lot going on. We were told June would be pretty big, and it was. And now it seems like July is going to be even ginormouser, and it is off to a really fast start. We'll start with the commits that they've had since the last show. They've had 2 commits. We'll start with Samuel Omasigo. Had to catch myself, make sure I got that. Omasigo from Crandall, Texas. He's a 3-star, 4-star linebacker, depending on where you look. 3-star in 247 Sports Composite, 4-star by 247 Sports. Commits to Oklahoma last week. I mean, this seems like a good one. I was admittedly on vacation at the time, but a 6'1 linebacker, over 200 pounds. You guys kind of outline a little bit what they're getting here, what's at the table with Omasigo.
Well, I'll just offer something real quick. He's versatile enough to play inside or outside, they say. He looks like an edge rusher, but at the same time, if he needed to, he could slide in. I think Rivals has him as a 4-star and 24/7 3-star, so that's interesting. Usually those guys are in lockstep. Not always, but usually they are. When it comes to somebody like this, you expect 24/7 to add that other star at some point. He visited Florida, visited Oklahoma, loved what he saw at OU, and committed about, a month later.
Yeah, it reminds me, and we'll get to Picciotti here in a second, the other linebacker commit. And I'm not saying that this pair is the exact same, but remember last year when Oklahoma had Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie, and you've got Kip Lewis was a guy that's a sideline to sideline, he can play anywhere, but just an athlete in the open field. The McKenzie's the one that you want stepping up in the hole and just laying the wood. Like, that's what it reminds me of when OU gets 2 linebacker commits back to back. Omasigo is going to be that guy that, like you said, John, he can play wherever you need him, but his just range, being able to cover all that ground, is going to be incredibly valuable, especially after you've seen in the spring game just how much Brent Venables asked this defense to do. You need a guy like Omasigo who can come in and play a couple of spots and play in the open field as well as at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, Omasigo is a 4-star from 247 and a 3-star on Rivals. And then Phil Picciotti, we're going to talk about now, is the flip of that. Phil Picciotti is
got that backwards.
4-star. Yeah, he's a 4-star by Rivals and a 3-star by 247. So Phil Picciotti commits. He's a Pennsylvania kid from Percasey, PA. 6'3", 225 pounds. Auburn, Michigan, Nebraska were the other teams in his Final Four. I did get to see a little more about him and his highlights and stuff like that. He seems like a Brent Venables guy, very physical, just kind of head down to the ball, contact, physical. And I think OU fans are going to really like him. It seems like he's a 3-star right now in 247 Sports Composite, which is what I tend to use since it kind of combines multiple together. It seems like that 4-star probably will come at some point, or it has a very good chance to. I really like him. I think he's got a chance to be pretty good. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that, who's ranking who a 3-star and who's ranking who a 4-star, because at some point they're going to be in lockstep and they'll both be 4-stars.
Yeah.
I would think in the near future. But, on Picciotti, man, Philadelphia kid, basically, from just outside the suburbs there, 30-some miles north of Philly. So, as I was talking about with Sam Mays on my radio show here in the Sports Animal, he said those Philly kids are grown a little different. They're kind of bred a little bit different. Josh did a great job putting together some highlight clips of Picciotti on our website, AllSooners. Check it out. And the very first clip, he knifes through the hole, 100 miles an hour, doesn't just take on the blocker. He explodes into and through the blocker, knocks him clear of the play, and then takes the running back down for about a 4-yard loss. Just an instinctive, explosive, and very confident in his decision-making kind of linebacker. I mean, when he sees something, he goes 100 miles an hour. He's committed to getting there and making the play. So, yeah, you said it best. I mean, he's a Venables guy. He reminds you of Stutzman. He reminds you of maybe Jaron Canick, for instance, out of Kansas. One of those guys that you just want to turn them loose and see what they're capable of.
Yeah, I think if you watch the highlights through the first time, the first thing that stands out is, oh my gosh, this guy's murdering people. Like he is absolutely flattening those poor kids that have to line up across from him. But the second thing you touched on it, Hoove, is how quickly he triggers, and you can tell that he's someone that just doesn't get too bogged down with, okay, this guy's tucking under here. No, he just says, ball's there. This is my read. I'm going, which allows him to get up to speed and then flatten these guys in the hole. That's exactly what you want. And it's exactly what this linebacking core is going to be built to do, more streamlined, as the idea is without the stunts and twists in front of them. It should just be easier to just, here's the play, read, react, and get going.
Yeah, so both these guys seem like very quality additions, certainly to the 2023 recruiting class. I'm excited for both, especially, like I said, Almasigo, I was on vacation at the time. I've kind of looked back at him a little bit, but Picciotti, really liked his tapes. They have 10 commits now with these two guys, 9 and 10 right there. They're ranked 37 right now still for 247 Sports' class rankings. Still feels really early on that kind of thing, but that's where they stand now. They have moved up a little bit with these last couple of commits. Elsewhere.
Hey, Josh, real quick, I want to interject. Elsewhere in the Big 12, Texas is number 3 currently. You're right, it is early, but Texas is number 3. You see Baylor at number 9. Baylor. They've got 22 guys committed for the 23 class, so they're at number 9. Texas Tech is number 14. West Virginia is number 17. This is what TCU is number 26, Iowa State 27. This is what Brent Venables was talking about. Don't commit to us early if you don't know for sure that you're going to commit. If you're going to stay a Sooner or whatever his words are, he said it. He said, don't commit. We don't want you to commit if you're not 100% married to us, because we're going to be 100% married to you. So this is what you're seeing. You're seeing that delayed kind of and put yourself in as a fly on the wall in one of those recruiting meetings. Kid comes in, makes his visit. Hey, coach, what's up? How's it going? Good to see you. All right. I think I'd like to commit. No, we ain't about that life. You think you'd like to commit? No, we ain't doing that. Go back home, take your other visits, look around, see all the pretty girls out there, and then let us know if you're going to commit. That's the way Venables has approached this, and that's why the recruiting is off to such a slow start right now.
Yeah, because the other thing will always be, if you think back to the pandemic season, I know people don't want to bring this up, but Lincoln Riley and co., they took a smaller class intentionally, and it said, look at the average ranking of these guys, right? Look at Oklahoma right now. They're under Brent Venables. They're never going to have 20 guys at the 1st of July. Like, that's just not going to be it unless there's 24 and 5 stars out there that know by July 1st they want to be an Oklahoma Sooner. We're going to get into it, but at the end of the week here on the 8th, Caden Green, he's coming off the board, big-time offensive tackle. Oklahoma probably feels good about that. You've got a wide receiver in Petaway. Kind of profiled this on our July the 4th morning story. There's 5 or 6 other guys coming off the board by the end of July. And will Oklahoma be at 20? No, as far as number of commits, but they'll be at 14, 15 maybe if things break right for them. And then you'll start going, oh, this Oklahoma team's kind of in the teens. And, oh, by the way, they've got 5 or 6 less commits than everyone else around them with a bunch of targets still on the board heading into the winter. It'll be good. It'll be good. This is just what Clemson does. And this is what, ironically enough, before Lincoln Riley hopped on, Clay Helton did at USC. They always were lagging. Then on signing day, they're up in there.
Yeah, so it's very different. It's kind of, we've been talking about this for, several weeks. We fans kind of have to recalibrate their brain of like the recruiting calendar. Normally this is, by now they have a lot more guys. It's just you have to kind of reset yourself with the new regime here. And July is going to be big, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But there's a chance for them to add a lot more here very, very soon. So it's already been a fruitful week, last week or so, these 2 guys, and more are coming. Before we get into those guys, though, I wanted to talk about Jackson Arnold real quick. He's pretty good. We talked about that before. He won Elite 11 MVP again, as Hoof put in the headline there again. What can you say? He continues to dazzle. He's starting to really turn heads as far as being in a serious conversation as the best quarterback in that class, in the 23 class. OU fans are probably, if they're not yet, you definitely should be really excited about this guy. Another Elite 11 MVP for him under his belt, and he's making a push to be the best quarterback in the class right up there. He's not going to pass Arch in the rankings or anything, but he's not exactly far off him either, it feels like.
Yeah, it's very competitive at the top of this class at the quarterback position, isn't it? Especially with Malachi Nelson out there and so many other guys. But the Elite 11, just to clarify, Elite 11 coaches, Trent Dilfer and his staff, they rank these kids and their Elite 11 performance based on how they did at other Elite 11 regional camps. Plus, 50%, I think, of their ranking is based on their junior film, video, highlights and whatnot. So they're taking into account the entire package. I think 24/7 Sports had Jackson Arnold as the number 2 quarterback at the camp. In other words, his performance was the second best performance at the Elite 11 camp in Los Angeles. Our own John Garcia had him a little lower. I think, was it 4th or 5th or something like that?
Yeah, right in there.
Yeah, so they're evaluating, and that's what's interesting to me. They're evaluating kind of like we did in was it 2006 when OU had an open quarterback competition. There were 3 guys, and every sports writer was there evaluating every throw. Was it on target? Was it a little too high? Was it a little too low? Was it to the right receiver? We were judging and grading everything. That's what the Elite 11, that's what a lot of the media were doing at the Elite 11 finals this year, was saying who's the best camper, who had the best camp here in LA. But you got to give it up to the Elite 11 staff and the coaches for saying we're taking into account the football player, how he played last year, his junior season, plus how he's played at all these other regional camps, plus how he played this weekend. So, yeah, Jackson Arnold, man, number 1.
Speaking of Oklahoma quarterbacks, we'll get to this on the other side when we wrap this up, but it looks like Ian Rappaport has just popped across that Baker Mayfield headed to Carolina. Baker Mayfield headed to Carolina. An awful fit for Baker, but at least it's a starting job. We'll get into that in a minute. But yes, Jackson Arnold goes out there, shows out. And the other thing, too, is Jackson Arnold, when we talked to him at the Dallas stop at the 11, he had talked about how Elite 11 had always been a goal of his and how he'd been preparing, knew the drills, stuff like that. So if you want to say, okay, he's just lining up, he's throwing against air, all that stuff, fine. But he's shown that the Elite 11 is something he wants. This, for me, if anything, it shows what kind of preparation Jackson Arnold goes through to make sure that he's on top of it, knows where he's going, knows what the pro day exercise is going to be, all that stuff, and then to go and show out. And actually, the other thing is he's not afraid to compete as well, as Arch Manning continues to just do Manning passing academies and play against whatever competition he's playing against.
Right.
And it's like, we won't know how good he is till he rolls out at Texas. He could be awesome. Nothing from his high school film is going to tell you that because he's not playing anybody, right? So Jackson Arnold, not a problem playing at, in Denton there in Texas. Happy to go on this circuit and compete against the other quarterbacks. Oh, by the way, playing some baseball as well this past summer. Just a competitor, the kind of guy that you would expect. Jeff Lebby and Brent Venables is going to sound cliche, but those guys come off as old school football guys that are a little curmudgeon-y at times and want to compete. That's the kind of guy you're getting at Jackson Arnold.
How amazing is it that Oklahoma has done this again, where they had Brock Vandegrift in their sights. They lost him, pivoted to Caleb Williams, pretty good. And now they've done this again. They had Malachi Nelson in pocket, lost him, and they pivoted to Jackson Arnold. That's pretty insane to twice lose somebody in your crosshairs that high profile and end up with somebody who, in Caleb Williams' case, looks like better. And obviously time will tell on Arnold or Nelson, but right now they look to be lock and step. Pretty crazy that Oklahoma's been able to do this twice, different regimes even, and being able to do this twice kind of shows, I guess, the power that OU carries on the recruiting cycle, especially for quarterbacks. So pretty impressive they're able to do this again. So we'll keep it up with Mr. Arnold. And it seems like as long as Jeff Lebby's in tow, Arnold will be as well. He's been very active on Twitter, tweeting at recruits and other guys saying to join. He's kind of similar to some of these other quarterbacks OU's had in that regard. So it's going to be interesting to see what he looks like whenever he does finally come to Norman. And I'm just very excited about the way that this all pieces together down the road, because it seems like he is so good that he's going to, just how does it fit in? How long is Gabriel here? Where does Nick Evers get in there? Does Arnold, the pieces are going to be interesting to watch that play out in the years ahead. So it's going to be very, very interesting. All right, we're going to take a timeout here. We'll let the Baker news wash over us a little bit. I'm sure we're going to talk about that on the other side, as well as other recruiting stuff going on. It's been a busy last week or so on the recruiting trail. So we'll talk about that, Baker, lots of other football coming up next in the AllSooners podcast. On Twitter, you can follow AllSooners at @all_Sooners. Ryan's at Radio's Ryan. Who's at John E. Hoover. I'm at Josh M. Callaway. Our website is allsooners.com. We're a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. All right, segment 2. This show has now been hijacked by Baker Mayfield. Hoove is stepped out. He's going to get something on the site up here. This is our nightmare, basically, is big news happening while we're recording. It really messes us up, but, oh well. We're happy for it. Baker finally gets traded. This is like months and months in the making. He goes to the Carolina Panthers. So, yeah, Ryan, obviously, this is immediate react. We haven't had any time to even let this wash over us hardly, but obviously the Panthers have been on the radar for a while. It always felt like them, but the Seahawks. It's good that Baker looks to have a shot to start. Certainly, it's between him and Sam Darnold to be the starting quarterback there in Carolina. That being said, Matt Rule is like the odds-on favorite to be the first coach fired. Everywhere you look, he's like the betting favorite for that. His OC is Ben McAdoo, who has had some struggles, and the Panthers play in the same division as Tom Brady and the Bucs, and the Saints aren't what they were, but they're still not easy. Now the Falcons, my team, stink, so he does have that going for him. But he's probably just happy to have a new spot and a new challenge. But this does feel like it's going to be really hard to just make Carolina into a winner right away.
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff that's panned out about this already. We can get into the compensation on both Cleveland's end. We can get into the financials, but just overall, first step is Baker Mayfield has a path to starting football games in the NFL this season. I think that's the most important thing, because I've talked about this a ton with Chisholm Holland on the franchise, but it's like through no fault of Baker, because the Browns screwed him. He's in a terrible spot of this is a kind of a prove it year because it's a contract year. It's a prove it year because he's coming off injury. He just needs to go out and have a good year and show I'm more the quarterback of 2 years ago than the one that was hurt last year. But these days, the golden ticket in the NFL is to have a guy that you feel like you can win a Super Bowl with at quarterback on a rookie scale contract. So most teams, especially in a draft that's going to have as much promise as this next one with CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, someone's going to fall in love with Spencer Rattler as a value pick, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate spot of a lot more teams have positioned to tank, honestly, than want to go after Baker Mayfield. So he just needed a spot to play games this next season and show what he can do, whether that's a tire fire with McAdoo and Rule in Carolina, whether Christian McCaffrey's healthy or not, any of that. That's the most important thing. Seattle would have been better, but Carolina pulled the trigger, and they didn't have to give up a whole lot.
No, just a 5th-round pick, and, it's funny because we just talked to Baker last week, right, at his camp, and he was talking about how, because the question came up, and we talked about it on last week's show, the question came up, Deshaun Watson looks like he may be suspended for the entire dang season. Would there be any chance you go back to the Browns? And he basically, as nicely as possible, said, no way. I'm not going back to the Browns. He pretty much shut it down. And so you wonder almost if things have gotten expedited in the last week or so of like, this deal needs to get made. Like, he's not coming back. We got to do something. We got to move him now. It's kind of a now or never thing. Panthers got him for not that much. And now you just wonder, you feel like the Panthers probably don't make this move unless they intend to start him. So it's like Baker and Darnold. First off, them on the same team is hilarious. Because they were they were compared a lot in the draft cycle, and the Colin Cowherds of the world saying, the Browns made the wrong pick. They should have drafted Darnold, blah, blah, blah. And now they're on the same team, on their second team, both of them, trying to figure out how to make that work. And then the amazing cherry on top that the Browns and Panthers play week 1.
Yes.
That is unbelievable. That is content. How does the NFL luck into stuff like that? It's amazing. It's amazing. So they play week 1. It's in Carolina. The only way it could have been better is if it was in Cleveland, because Baker going in, it would have been like the Texas Tech game. It would have been like going into Lubbock. It would have been like that, because his reception there wouldn't be good, should say. But man, we always talk about how Baker always has that chip on his shoulder, always plays so motivated, and he just, man, this year is going to be even just at a level maybe unlike we've ever even seen. So we'll see. I mean, they have some guys there in Carolina. It's not the best situation, but it is something. It is an opportunity. So, and that's really, I think, all that Baker wanted. And it felt like the further we went into the summer here, it felt more and more like he's probably going to end up going somewhere and being a backup and just kind of waiting for an opportunity to arise somewhere with an injury or something. So the fact that he has a chance to start, that in of itself is definitely a win. But we'll see. Panthers Browns week 1. We got to figure out how to get to Carolina. We got to get Hoop to send us.
I know. It'll be interesting too, because remember back in Cleveland, Baker played his best, ironically, when he didn't have Odell Beckham Jr., when he didn't have that number 1 receiver, and he was able to kind of spread the ball around. So if McCaffrey's healthy, you'll have kind of a playmaker there out of the backfield, and Baker will have an opportunity to show, yeah, I'm that guy that if you just give me the reins and let me play quarterback, then I'll be able to elevate everybody else. If he can do that in a year, regardless of what the situation is in Carolina, he's going to have some traction around the league. And I believe that Carolina's talked to him because the financials came out. This came from Mike Garofalo. So originally the contract was just a hair over $18 million guaranteed, which was another thing that was kind of a problem. The Browns are going to pay $10.5 million of that. The Panthers will pay Mayfield about $5 million. And then Baker has agreed to trim $3.5 million off his base salary this year. So I would be stunned if Baker agreed to trim $3.5 million and wasn't given some guarantees that, yeah, you got to lose the job. You know what I mean? Not even compete. Like, you got to lose the job, especially with what we've seen out of Darnold. Like, Baker's problem was injury, and then the Browns went out and hired an alleged just sleazeball to play quarterback. Like, that was Baker's problem. It wasn't that he's seeing ghosts or anything like that.
This quarterback room is hilarious, by the way, because it's Sam Darnold and Baker, which is great by itself. But then remember, they also drafted Matt Corral. They have Matt Corral there, and they have XFL legend PJ Walker in-house. So this is a heck of a crew of quarterbacks on this team. He does have Christian McCaffrey, like you said. DJ Moore is a very underrated receiver. So he does have a clear number 1. But also, I don't think they ever overlapped at OU, but he has Charleston Rambo on this team also. They're just kind of skimming their roster real quick. I don't know if they ever overlapped. I don't think they did. I'm trying to think. Maybe they did just barely.
The Rambo coming out party was Orange Bowl against Alabama with Kyler.
Right. So I don't know how well they know each other, if at all.
No,
but
Rambo was he's a redshirt on that 2017 team, because remember Lincoln talked about that if they had the redshirt rule, that Rambo's a guy that would have played down the stretch for him in 2017.
So yeah, they have Terrace Marshall too. So I mean, they have some guys. It's gonna, they feel like they're kind of far from competing, but who knows? I mean, Baker. It's not worse than what Baker took over when he was drafted by Cleveland, for what it's worth. And they found a way to win some games that year.
Shout out to the Panthers social media team. You have been rumored to be in the Baker Mayfield sweepstakes since Deshaun Watson was landed by Cleveland, and they just didn't even try to Photoshop Baker into a Panthers jersey. They just threw Baker in the Browns jersey on their graphic that they tweeted out. So shout out to Carolina. Working overtime over there.
Yeah, exactly. You guys have had months to prepare an edit. That is a big swing and a miss on that front. So yeah, Baker finally gets traded. It's unbelievable because we were talking about this so long ago that we're actually sitting here and he actually is traded. He's on the Carolina Panthers now. So there you have it. Do the Panthers and Cardinals play this year? That's my next question. We have a Baker-Kyler Bowl. Probably do. They're both in the NFC. I got to skim the Panthers' schedule now, just trying to find the juiciest games.
I know. I mean, because once you get past that week 1 where you're just like Panthers,
They do
Browns,
play the
Cardinals and
week
Panthers
4.
play week 4.
Yeah, week
also
4.
in Carolina.
So yeah, that ought to be interesting. They go to Cincinnati, gets to face his old buddy Burrow. Gonna be fun. It's gonna be wild. Wild times. I just wish that game was in Cleveland. But Panthers, Browns, that game needs to be elevated. It's like a Sunday afternoon game. That game needs to be elevated to Sunday Night Football. Bump Sunday Night Football. Bump whatever Sunday Night Football is that day.
Just, move it to Monday night, and let's do a Monday Night Football triple header. Let's start the first game at 2 p.m. on Monday.
Everybody's going to want to watch that thing. So elevate that thing to national TV. Find a way. Move it to Saturday, Friday night, something. Give me something. That needs to be on national TV. Never thought I'd say that about Browns Panthers in my life, but that needs to be on national TV. So Baker finally gets traded. We'll get Hoover's thoughts on it whenever he gets back in there. We'll move on, but man, this show has been hijacked by Baker Mayfield. All right,
it's the Baker Mayfield emergency pod. Your regularly scheduled Wednesday emergency pod.
Yeah, this just became it's emergency pod that we were just mid recording. We should almost just chop off this 10, 15 minutes and make it its own show because it just out of nowhere. Blindside. So finally gets traded. We'll move on. We'll get back to recruiting. Like I said, we'll get Hoop's thoughts if he's able to jump back in. So back to recruiting after the Baker saga. We touched on a little bit. In-state guys, a couple of them leaving. OU had 2 in-state guys choose elsewhere over the last week. Cole Adams, the Owasso receiver, who seemingly had offers from everywhere and then finally got that OU offer late, but then ends up committing to Alabama anyway. And then Micah Tease, who we talked about a lot, Tulsa kid as well, he commits to Arkansas. We've talked about Tease obviously a lot over the last several months. I mean, more than several months, going back to high school football season, who talked to him a couple times during last season. So both these guys leave the state. You know, anytime a guy who's highly touted in the state leaves the state, goes to somewhere else, it gets OU fans upset. And it makes sense. You want to take care of the guys in your state. When you combine these two with a couple others, we're going to talk about By Job in a minute. You know, generally speaking, the top end of the guys in Oklahoma, they're not doing that well. A lot of them are not going to Oklahoma or probably aren't going to go to Oklahoma. So I don't know if it's really, is it concerning to you, I guess, is the best way. I mean, is this something OU fans should be worried about, or is it just as simple as they have guys that they prefer and that's how it goes?
Yeah, I think that it's a perfect year of you can explain away individually pretty much every single one of these when it comes down to relationships with Lincoln Riley, connections outside the state, or just at wide receiver specifically. What do we know about Jeff Lebby? He likes big-bodied wide receivers. Luke Haas is the only guy in Oklahoma playing wide receiver at that level that would fit that bill, right? And he's a tight end and stuff with Arkansas, his brother, all that stuff. So I think that it's one of those things where right now, as it stands, if you want to freak out about it, go for it, I guess. But Brent Venables and co have not been making the rounds around Oklahoma high schools and all that stuff for this to happen. You know what I mean? They've also landed Eric McCarty, which was an early evaluation. Chapman McCown, the Norman North running back, has kind of been extended an opportunity to join the team, stuff like that. So, they care about the state. I just think that it's a perfect storm of this staff coming in their first offseason after guys, the other coaching staff left. They start to look around. If this class comes up 2 years from now, I'm fascinated to see if all those guys are leaving the state of Oklahoma or if most of those guys are staying home. But it's not a panic button for me. And also, the guys that they're going to get committed at wide receiver are probably going to be rated better than any of the wide receivers in the state of Oklahoma.
Sure.
That's what you get when it's the double-edged sword of that Oklahoma has to walk of, okay, you can get those guys, but can you get better players elsewhere?
Yeah, this is what I was referring to. So By Job, who we're going to talk about just a second, he's typically crystal balled to Michigan State. Luke Haas, Arkansas, Micah Tease, Arkansas, and then Cole Adams, Alabama. That's 4 of the top 5 guys in Oklahoma. 3 are definitely gone, and then it looks like By Job is going to be gone as well. Jacoby Johnson hasn't committed yet, Mustang guy. He is expected to be an OU commit, so they would get him. But, that, like I said before, OU fans generally don't like it when the Oklahoma guys don't go to OU. And it makes sense. You want to take care of your own state. I wouldn't worry about it too much, especially considering that, some of these guys like Haas especially was, he was a Lincoln Riley commit and, that turnover he decommitted. So there is special circumstances on these. You have to put some context around it. So we'll see how it shakes out in the years beyond. But yeah, so a couple of Oklahoma guys leaving there with Tease and Adams. I guess we'll go and talk about By Job now. Natural transition. Norman Kid, Community Christian School. I talked to him at a 7-on-7 tournament back in March. At the time, he really made it seem like Georgia was the favorite for him. Then he comes out with his final 3 today. Georgia's not actually even in it. It's Oklahoma, Alabama, and Michigan State in his final 3. Like I said a minute ago, Michigan State is considered the favorite. He's going to commit this week. I think tomorrow, actually, July 7th. at 4:00. I think he said he's going to announce his commitment. So he has OU in his final 3, which is good. OU fans should like that. Doesn't sound like they're going to get him, barring something unforeseen. But we'll see. I mean, these kids change their minds pretty quickly. So we'll see what happens if they can find a way to get who is, by 247 Sports' rankings, the top player in Oklahoma, and by Joe, right in their backyard there at Community Christian in Norman.
Yeah, this one would be the one, to me, that Oklahoma doesn't come out on top. It'll hurt just because of the position it's at, right, as far as defensive line, all that stuff. But again, by Job Norman kid, not like he's born and raised in Norman and been going to Gaylord Family Memorial Stadium for 18 years. You know what I mean? Transplant to the States in Norman, all, you know what I mean? So it's not like you lost a kid that you've had under your thumb for 18 years. That is not the case. So again, I just think it's a perfect storm of weird stuff just as far as this class is concerned, if that's how it shakes out for the Sooners. Not a huge panic button moment, though. Yeah, you want an edge rusher that looks like by Job. Like, you want that, especially if he's an Oklahoma kid.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fact that he's so much in your backyard, I think, does make that sting a little more. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see. There's a long time before the actual signing day, too. I mean, you never know. Kids flip. So we'll see what happens there.
Just because Brent Venables and co are like, hey, we want you to be committed when you commit to Oklahoma, that doesn't mean that guy commits somewhere else and they say, we're never going to talk to this kid ever again. Right. Flips can happen.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So we'll see how that shakes out. He does commit on Thursday afternoon. So we'll get the official-ish verbal commitment tomorrow. Elsewhere, another Final Four for Oklahoma, 4-star cornerback Josiah Wagner comes from Cal, Oregon, and Texas. Hold on. Before we do that, John Hoover is back.
Yo, sorry, got the old laptop going here.
Oh, it's all good. We lost the camera.
Baker Mayfield.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Back. All right, we broke down our reacts to Baker, but you want to get in there before we get some other stuff?
Yeah, sure. I heard you say not necessarily the best fit for Baker. No question about it. Seattle would have been better. Seattle's got a couple of Pro Bowl receivers. Not sure what Carolina brings in that department, but Seattle's
DJ Moore is the best one. Yeah.
Better franchise, more run with a little more, I don't know, efficiency, professionalism, whatever it is. The fact that Matt Rule is very likely going to be fired probably midway through this season, if not earlier, is interesting. Hey, maybe Baker, you know what? Right now, Baker's saying, if anybody can save Matt Rule's job, it's me. You know, that's the way Baker's approaching this. What Baker needed more than anything, probably at this stage of his career, he's had three years basically of people beating him down. You know, that rookie year was okay. He's a rookie, fine, whatever. Second year was not good. Third year, he leads them to the playoffs. But hey, this defense, Myles Garrett, all these guys were Pro Bowlers and blah, blah, blah. Fourth year, he busts his shoulder and everybody's like, yeah, see, Baker sucks. What Baker needed, he's had 3 years of people beating him down. He needed, think about it, it's Baker Mayfield. He needed somebody to tell him he couldn't do it. He needed somebody, and everybody in this case, to tell him he's not good, he's a bust, he didn't deserve to be the number 1 pick, he shouldn't have even been a first-round pick. This is exactly what fuels Baker Mayfield. Does anybody who knows Baker or has been around him doubt for a second that he's going to beat out Sam Darnold and win the starting quarterback job? And probably, no disrespect to Sam Darnold, but this is about Baker, and this is about his opportunity to show everybody he's going to roll his sleeves up and he's going to put that chip on his shoulder again, and he's going to be like, honey, what'd you do with my chip on my shoulder? Have you seen it? You know what I mean? He's going to go after
progressive now.
He's going to absolutely be and get in the progressive ads looking for the.
I would say, do they shift to Bank of America Stadium?
Have to.
Yeah, or
at home with Baker Mayfield, absolutely, especially if he wins
the job. I guess you don't want to swipe in Deshaun Watson to take over your ad campaign, probably.
Okay, so if he's moving into the neighborhood, does he have to register as a sex offender? Deshaun Watson,
I think so.
You know what I mean?
Allegedly, I don't know. I don't know if he has to yet.
Probably doesn't want any part of that ad campaign.
Does Progressive
Sean?
Yeah, does Progressive have some sort of movers insurance that they can a weird policy that they can? Hey, we're moving everything over.
I think it's not an ideal fit for Baker being in Carolina, but just any fresh start for him is good right now. He wanted out, he got out. That's good for him. I think Seattle would have been better. And I've got members of my family who would strongly agree that Baker Mayfield in a Seattle Seahawks uniform would have really been good.
Yeah, I mean, that was our main thought, was probably there would have been better opportunities, but the fact that he gets a chance to go try to start somewhere in a division that's not that bad. I mean, the Bucks are the Bucks. Tom Brady is not going to be there forever. It feels like it, but he's not going to be there forever. The Saints are in transition, and again, my Falcons stink right now. So, I mean, it could be worse, I guess, is my the best way I can put it. It could be worse. It could be better, but it could be worse. So we'll see how that shakes out. I'm very excited to see that Browns-Panthers game week 1. We were joking, we got to get that thing elevated to national TV. That thing's got to be on. Give me a Friday night football, Sunday night, whatever needs to get bumped. Got to get that thing in front of more eyeballs, because that's going to be some electric TV, especially if it's Watson. I don't think it will be, obviously. The expectation is he's going to get suspended, but if it's Watson Baker week 1, holy moly, that's great.
You guys can come up the turnpike and watch it on my DirecTV Sunday ticket if I'll have it on.
Not if Apple swipes in and buys it first, boss.
Is it still up for bid this year? It hasn't been settled yet?
No, I think Apple's going to get it, yeah.
I thought DirecTV had it this year.
They got it this year. But, hey.
Okay.
Don't hey, Tim Cook out there, he's like, I don't care. Shred your contracts.
Going to be interesting for sure. Excited for it. NFL is coming up quickly as well. Football's right around the corner, and it feels good. So elsewhere, who we already touched on, the out-of-state kids leaving, and by Job, looks like he's probably going to leave as OU in his final 3. We were getting ready to talk about Josiah Wagner at OU in his top 4, along with it was Oregon, Cal, and Texas, I believe, in his final 4 there. So 4-star cornerback. We'll see where he shakes out. Has OU in his final 4, which is another step forward to getting a really good defensive player. But yeah, I mean, so we'll see what happens with him, but another good step here for Oklahoma, trying to get a good defensive player.
Yeah, it is. And they need a bunch of those, obviously. I'm not one of you guys know me. I'm not a company man. I'm not one of those guys that's going to come out and honk the company line. Oh, everything's going to be fine. Recruiting July. Just wait. Everybody's going to be happy. That's not how I roll typically. That's not how what my makeup is. So I have to approach things. Again, I'm not knocking anybody here. It's just this is how I look at things. I have to take an approach that's cynical, critical, whatever you want to call it, and ask the question at least, why is the premier program in the state of Oklahoma not landing more players from the state of Oklahoma? Most years it's okay. Most years a lot of those guys aren't good enough to play at Oklahoma. Totally get it. When they get out of state and they get in a program and they grow and they blossom into a great player, you totally understand why OU missed on a player that went somewhere else. Josh Jacobs comes to mind. But the recruiting is a sketchy business. It's a funny business. It's obviously not an exact science. And when a guy is one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 prospects in the state and doesn't feel like he's been recruited enough or shown enough love from OU or OSU or whoever it is, and it comes down to the top 2 or 3, or maybe that school got in late because they had a flip, like Ashton Cozart at Oregon, obviously affecting the Cole Adams decision. Those who follow closely Oklahoma football and those who follow recruiting, they have to ask the question, they have to be honest with themselves and ask the question, wait, why are these guys not sold yet on Brent Venables? I think it's still early. Maybe the most, what's the word? The most positive way to look at it, if you're an OU fan, Venables has not gotten a chance to fully evaluate the 2023 class. He's done as much as he can in a short amount of time, but he's still 6 months into the job, and so he doesn't maybe have a full scope of who's out there, which Oklahoma players are capable of playing at Oklahoma. That's probably the most positive way to look at this thing, is that he just hasn't, didn't have a chance to fully evaluate Cole Adams. And so Cole Adams felt the love from Alabama. Who wouldn't feel love if Alabama's in town? I had someone tell me that they thought this was Nick Saban just coming to Oklahoma saying, yeah, we're just going to stick it to Venables. They're coming to the SEC, so we're going into their place and we're taking some of their players. That's probably not necessarily the case. I don't think that's the case. But boy, it gets a little bit tangled now. If there's as many good players in the 2024 class next year as there is this year in 2023, I'm talking projecting the recruiting down the line. If there's 6 guys or 7 guys or 8 guys that are capable of playing at Oklahoma, I bet OU gets a lot bigger percentage of those guys next year because Venables will have gotten out and met the families, really established the bloodlines with the coaches, the recruiting lines with the high school coaches, and really gotten himself out there in the eyes of those recruits. That's where this thing probably sits. That's just a guess on my part, but that's where this probably sits.
Let me ask you this, just to play devil's advocate. When you look at the wide receivers specifically, I think that's where the most consternation is about. I think everyone would agree that OU would have jumped at being able to have Luke Haas, obviously the Lincoln Riley thing. You'd love By Joe. That one's going to stink if that doesn't go your way. But if your recruiting philosophy is you like big-bodied wide receivers, are you supposed to curtail and take a 5'10 and 5'11 kid just because they're from Oklahoma if they don't fit what you want to do? Because that, to me, is the recipe for a kid to commit and then be in the transfer portal in 2 seasons after they go through the strength program and all that stuff. Not saying that's the case. I just think that it's so fascinating with what is clearly Jeff Levy's body type at wide receiver, why the wide receivers in the state of Oklahoma might not have felt this staff was all in on them from the jump.
The Sooners, didn't they get a guy though, or they've got a guy in his top 3 who is 5'10", 190. Who am I thinking of? Wide receiver, slot receiver that's basically going to take the place of that role.
Right, but one of them, not 3 of them.
Right. Yeah. No. And that's the thing. You need one of those guys. You need one of those guys to be a slot receiver and move around and be that Wes Welker role sort of. I totally get that, and I think Jeff Levy would sit here and tell you the same thing. You don't need one, but they're awful handy to have when you get one. I think Cole Adams fits that role. And I think a lot of people around here are saying, wait a minute, how come he's going to Alabama? How come these kids are going to Michigan State and, wherever else, Arkansas, and so on and so forth. Oklahoma needs to establish something pretty quick. There's a lot of people saying, just wait, July will get here and everything will be rosy again and everybody will be happy. I'm saying wait till July 2023 because that's when you're going to start signing a lot of those kids from the 2024 class.
Recruiting's wild right now. That's all I know. That's my main takeaway. It has been very, very hectic. While I was on vacation, it was like I was checking my phone, and it was like every single day there was commits, there was Final Fours, there was guys leaving, going committing other places. It's been hectic, and it's continued to be. July looks like it's going to be huge. Lots of guys committing over the next several weeks. Dalen Smothers committing while we're at media days, not cool. Don't appreciate that. He's got a very good chance to be an OU kid. But yeah, July is going to be nuts. It already has been.
Someone did that was it Xavier Bryce that committed during Big 12 Media Day last year? Because I remember having to sneak away and be like, hold on, let's cover this bad boy.
We had a few things during media days last year. I remember basketball released their schedule too.
Oh yeah.
I really grind my gears. They're going to do it again. I can feel it. I can feel it brewing.
It's bad for the brand to release your basketball schedule on Football Media Day. Don't do it.
I did it last year, so I got no reason to think it won't happen again. That's my fear, and that's where we're headed. So, but yeah, July's going to be nuts, so keep up with us. AllSooners, we're going to have lots for you. Trying to stay on top of this as best we can. There's commits coming in, and Final Fours and Final Threes, and announcing commitment dates. There's something every day, literally, right now. So you want to keep up with us, AllSooners.com, to be up to date on all of it. All right. I think that this second segment got completely hijacked by Baker Mayfield. We tried to reel it in. Hopefully that was somewhat coherent. We're going to take a break here. We'll come back. We have actually a lot of other sports to get to, even though it's the middle of July. Lots of things going on with the Diamond sports. Basketball is being busy. So we'll talk about all that stuff on the other side of this break on the AllSooners podcast. Final segment of the AllSooners podcast, episode 131 on this July 6th. We'll talk about some other sports here. We'll send you on your merry way into your weekend. Get ready for Big 12 Media Days next week. We'll start with some basketball news in the middle of July. Lon Kruger to the Hall. Papa Lon gets himself into the Hall of Fame. Good for Lon, obviously, a very good coaching career. Had success at a lot of different places. That was announced over the last week or so. I can't remember when it was. It's been a blur. But Lon Kruger gets into the Hall of Fame. Pretty cool to see. I don't know which school. Obviously, it's hard for us to judge it from covering him and everything, but I don't know which school generally he's thought of the most, like what he's most connected to. We got to imagine Oklahoma's right there with that Final Four run, obviously in 2016. A really good coaching career, just a solid coach for a long time, a lot of different places in the NBA even. So, but good to see him get his due there. Lon Kruger to the Hall of Fame. Pretty cool.
The College Basketball Hall of Fame. I think he's associated as much with Oklahoma as he is with any school. I think he coached here longer than any other school. So
yeah, Florida and K-State both get talked about a lot. Yeah,
a guy that brought, was it 5 schools to the NCAA tournament, and is widely regarded by everybody who knows him as one of the kindest, most genuine, gentle, giving people that they've ever been around. Don't stop at the College Basketball Hall of Fame. He needs to be in the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame at some point. No national championships to his name. That shouldn't be the only thing that decides it. I think he's earned a spot in that Hall of Fame as well. Big one.
When you end up in by the time he was done among active coaches, up near the top in like the top 30 of all time wins. Like we said, when you're one of those guys, you start putting yourself on lists of only coach to take this many schools to the NCAA tournament, and you can roll that up. That shows that he was able to just take and have success. He had 6 official stops as a head coach in college. He took Texas, Pan American, now UTRGV to a 21 season. Didn't take him to the NCAA tournament. That's the only one he didn't take to the tournament, but still a 20-win season there. And that was back when the tournament wasn't a 68-team affair, right? When he was coaching there. So success at every stop, and even a little fun with my Hawks along the way. So thankful to Lon for always being just very kind and accommodating with his coverage and all that stuff. And like you said, we were jarred when the new regime came in because a different level of practice demeanor and things like that. You don't need 4-letter words to win at a high level in college basketball. You don't need secrecy. Lon Kruger opened up every practice and was gracious to everyone that was always there, and he won at a high clip.
Yeah, Lon Kruger was great to cover. Extremely nice guy. You felt like you could genuinely ask him anything. Like, you could be like, Lon, the team was horrible today. And he'd be like, well, like, he was one of the nicest guys. He was very, very easy to cover, that's for sure. So cool to see him get some due there. And we'll keep up with that down the road.
I have a question. Looking at my list here. Lon Kruger is in the College Basketball Hall of Fame. Kelvin Sampson is not. Billy Tubbs is not. The only other Sooner coach that is Bruce Drake, College Basketball Hall of Fame.
The only other Sooner in general in the College Basketball Hall of Fame from the men's program is Wayman Tisdale.
Is that right? So 2 coaches and 1 player.
Just Lon and Wayman, yeah.
Bruce Drake, 1939 to 1955. He's in the College Basketball Hall of Fame.
There you go. So there's your 3.
So there you go.
We should probably I don't know how long they have to wait on that kind of thing, but I'm thinking Blake Griffin and Buddy Hield should probably be in there. That's at some point.
Yeah, National Players of the Year. Plus, you've got Billy Tubbs won a bunch of games at several schools. Kelvin Sampson, again, won a bunch of games at several schools. Billy Tubbs rubbed people the wrong way. Kelvin Sampson had too many cell phone calls, which now is hilarious. That's your violation. That's your violation.
Well, he's still doing it. Obviously, he still runs a really good program at Houston too.
Absolutely, he belongs in the Hall of Fame at the highest level as well. So it's just some of these violations you go back and look at, like Reggie Bush. You lived off campus in an apartment with Matt Leinart, and Leinert's dad paid for it, and that's why you got your Heisman taken away. Now we look back on it now in 2022. It's crazy.
Definitely. So, I would think Oklahoma should definitely have some more guys in there at some point, especially on the player end in the last 10 plus years. Got a couple national players of the year, number 1 pick. I mean, when you play college basketball, winning player of the year, that's about as much as you could do. That should be like an automatic, seems like to me. you win Player of the Year, you get in to the Hall of Fame.
Sure.
Like,
yeah,
done deal. So we'll see how that shakes out in the future. It seems like Oklahoma should definitely have some more guys in there in due time. Now, elsewhere basketball, they stayed busy. Porter Moser finished out his coaching staff. Ryan Humphrey, welcome back. How you doing? Played at Oklahoma for a couple seasons, then played at Notre Dame for a couple seasons, was on the staff at Notre Dame, and now he goes to his other alma mater. He's back at Oklahoma now, rounding out the coaching staff. Obviously, OU lost KT Turner and David Patrick this offseason. They've now replaced both of them with Ryan Humphrey coming in. Hoove, obviously, you may have a little more familiarity with him, covering Oklahoma somewhat. I know you're not as much on the basketball, whatnot. What I do?
What are you saying? I'm old?
Well,
I've got the photo somewhere.
That's right. He's got the photo of him and Ryan Ryan Humphrey when he was a little kid.
That's hilarious. I didn't know that. I hadn't seen that.
The OU
this is all me catching up on news while I was on vacation. So some of this stuff I'm very hazy on.
Yeah, I've got somewhere tucked away, probably in that closet over there. There's photos of me, many of the Samson basketball players, and I from the OU basketball camp days.
I've got an autograph of Wayman Tisdale signed on the back of a Wendy's sack from Wendy's in Norman with a ballpoint pen that he autographed for me on the day that he announced he was turning pro. So how about that? I was at a concert with my girlfriend in Norman, and when the concert got out, and I'm like listening to the sports news updates, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Wayman's going pro. Well, kind of thought he would, but dang, that sucks. Oh, well. Let's go get a Wendy's burger. And we walked in, and he and his family were the only people in the whole place. And I was like, dude, I think that's Wayman Tisdale. I wonder if he'd mind if I, got an autograph on this special day. And he did. He went up to the Wendy's person and said, do you have a bag or something? Signed it for me. Wayman Tisdale, best wishes. And I thumbtacked it to my bedroom wall for like a year or whatever it was. It was pretty cool. But
why didn't he sign a napkin or something? A bag?
Napkins are it was a Wendy's bag, but it was totally folded and perfectly. I mean, it was much better, much more high quality than than a napkin. Yeah, napkins go away really quick.
That's one of the weirdest things. I have a Wendy's bag signed by Wayman Tisdale.
Wayman Tisdale. On the day he announced he was going pro, he had his suit on, and his family was with him, and there was like 3 Cadillacs out in the parking lot, and I'm like, dude.
He's wearing a suit eating at Wendy's?
Eating at Wendy's
There's
on the day.
That doesn't make any sense.
Signed his big contract. I know. It's hilarious.
Hey,
I ate at Burger King on my on the night of my honeymoon.
Hey, is it that same Wendy's on Main? Is it the same one?
On Main. Yep, same one. Yep.
Wow.
Hey,
pretty cool, huh?
You don't stay rich blowing thousands of dollars on every time something big happens just to eat some food.
That's incredible stuff. So, but yeah, I don't know how we got onto that. I guess the Hall of Fame conversation, Ryan Humphrey, the photo.
The Booker T. Washington commit that Oklahoma fans really wanted was Ryan Humphreys coming back to the basketball staff.
We started talking about Ryan Humphrey, and of course, all OU basketball conversations divert to Wayman Tisdale and Wendy's.
He found his way into both those conversations. Wayman Tisdale.
I know.
He worked his way into both.
Ryan was a beast when he came out of Booker T and signed with the Sooners. Man, he was one of those double guys. People were afraid of him on the basketball court. He was fearsome. He played football as well, if I remember right, and just had a physical presence to him. And is one of those guys that, 2 years in, decided he wanted to go somewhere else and went to Notre Dame and became a first-team all Big East performer there, man. That kid could absolutely play. My question is, he's at Notre Dame as an assistant coach. Notre Dame, kind of Chicago area. How many times did he cross paths with Porter Moser over the years? And then when Porter Moser gets the Oklahoma job, how soon did he think of former Sooner, right? Ryan Humphrey. There's got to be a little connection there, I think, that I'd like to explore a little further.
Yeah, absolutely. You have that. And then it makes sense, too, if this was the master plan all along for this offseason, for what Porter was trying to put together, why for your other assistants you can get some more national guys. Because it felt like, that the first staff, you had KT Turner, your ace in the hole in Texas. You had David Patrick doing the rest of the country, international, all that stuff. And then so now you've got Humphreys who can come back, Ryan Humphrey come back and be your, he knows the Oklahoma area, going to know this area as well, being from here, as well as having those Chicago connections, just like Porter. So kind of reshapes how the staff still has that local tie and then the national coast to coast ties when you pull an assistant off a Maryland staff.
Keeping up with the theme, now this is not a Baker Mayfield level of getting traded level of news, but another little thing to touch on here real quick, and we'll have something on AllSooners on this shortly by the time you listen to this. Troy Bowles, number 2 linebacker, number 2 in the 23 class, just included OU in his final 3. So pretty interesting there with Ohio State and Georgia. So pretty good competition there. Troy Bowles, number 2 linebacker in the 23 class.
23, okay.
Yeah, number 2 linebacker, 4-star from Tampa, Florida. So certainly worth a note there, a little note there.
Josh, where could we find out more about that if we wanted to go look for it?
AllSooners.com.
Thank you.
It'll be
I'm going to go there right now.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's
click on everything. Even if you already know about it, click on it.
Yeah. His dad just got a promotion out there in Tampa, old Todd Bowles. So that would be a that's that rubber stamp that you want, right? Is Brent Venables, linebacker guy, NFL head coach, defensive mind, wants his son to go play for your coach. Like that's the kind of stuff that can kind of, we talk about momentum, defensive momentum, that stuff helps. It may not seem like it, but being able to be like, hey, Todd Bowles, that guy you'd like to play for in 5 years, his son wants to hang out with us.
Absolutely. So certainly worth a note there. All right, elsewhere, we'll go to the Diamond Sports real quick here to wrap things up. Have several softball movements. Softball staying active in July. We'll start with Sydney Romero going to Duke. Going to be on the coaching staff over there. Ryan, obviously our resident softball expert, I'll let you kind of run point on most of these, but obviously, so explain that, for people and me, frankly, obviously she was on the OU staff in some capacity recently. Obviously this must be a step up for her to leave Oklahoma to go to Duke. Is it just that simple? Like this is just a higher in the pecking order on the staff kind of a thing?
Yeah, it is that simple. So you get 2 graduate assistants in softball. Those GAs are capped at 2 years. So Sydney Romero has been a graduate assistant for 2 years at Oklahoma. So her next step was either to be an assistant coach, which Jen Rocha and JT Gasso not going anywhere, or do what Kristen Zaleski did, who we'll talk about here in a second, and be a volunteer assistant, which is not a paid position, right? So for Sydney Romero to get a call from Duke, who is an upstart program, made it to the NCAA tournament, made it to Supers weekend, if I remember correctly. But either way, Duke's a program. There's a lot of ACC programs on the rise. This is a great spot for Sydney Romero. Patty Gasso thinks the world of her as a coach. I know that. And so Duke picking her up, she's going to be able to show that out. And it's just as simple as she couldn't be a GA again for a third year in Norman. Those 2 spots for paid positions are already filled at Oklahoma, so she needed to go out, spread her wings a little bit. This is a great landing spot for Sydney Romero, and Duke got a great coach, up-and-coming coach.
I got a softball note for you guys.
Shoot.
Yeah. So Jocelyn Erickson, who has signed with the Sooners, she's a first baseman and catcher, big bat. She is up for the Max Preps National Player of the Year. Just been reported today that she's one of 3 finalists for that. So think about that. National Player of the Year, Gatorade National Player of the Year, Jada Coleman, Gatorade National Player of the Year. The pitcher, gosh, why is her name escaping me? Help me out, guys.
Jordy Ball.
Jiminy Christmas. What's wrong with my brain? And then Jocelyn Erickson, National Player of the Year from Max Preps. Hasn't been Gatorade splashed yet, I guess, but that's like I think I might have said this earlier on a podcast, guys. It's just not fair what Patty Gasso's doing. Doesn't matter who her assistant coaches are. Doesn't matter who's GAing. How that empire is crumbling from within. There's players on campus that are looking to get to Oklahoma. There's players in high school that are looking to get to Oklahoma. It's just not fair.
Definitely. It's an empire. I mean, they get wherever they want. Jordy Ball. I don't know how that one. Yeah, I don't know how that one escaped you. I'm not gonna lie. Maybe it's because of the.
I blocked her. That's why we go all the way to Omaha and ask for an interview, and we basically got told no, and so blocked her from my consciousness. That's what it is. That has to be what it is.
We tried. We gave it
tried.
the old college
and
try.
we got offered the interview in Norman. It's like, okay, let us know when that could happen. We tried to give you guys some one-on-one exclusive content with Jordy Ball. Didn't happen.
It's a thought that counts.
It's the thought that counts.
Elsewhere, another assistant leaving, Kristen Zaleski. She goes to Texas. I saw a fan comment "traitor" in all caps on Facebook. I think it was pretty funny. Ryan, again, defer to you here. What exactly role Zaleski had at OU, and what she's taking with Texas?
Yeah, so her official title is volunteer assistant. For those of you that were at games, you would know her as she was the first base coach. That's where probably she was most visible. Notably, she checked in on me to make sure I wasn't dead when Teriya Jennings tried to take my head off at the Hall of Fame Classic. So that's my Zaleski moment that I'll always appreciate. But no, she's someone that she had head coaching experience at Temple, Texas, at Texas Corpus Christi, A&M Corpus Christi down there. So that area around Austin, Central Texas, stuff like that. That is where she had spent her entire career before coming to Oklahoma for a year to learn under Patty Gasso as a volunteer assistant coach. So again, you can come and be a volunteer assistant coach for 1 year, but there's no spots available on OU's coaching staff. And if Texas is going to come along and offer you one of those 2 assistant coach spots that gets the big bucks on a softball staff, in an area that she's incredibly familiar with a program clearly on the rise under Mike White, it makes all the sense in the world for Zaleski to take this job. So I know that OU fans are going to be like, oh, why are you going to Texas, all that stuff. This is a great career move for her, and another one that it's like, look, you're probably not going to get offered something better than this. So whether you like the going from OU to Texas or not, she's going to go and have a big impact with the infield and the hitting there in Austin.
I didn't really block Jordy. I just had a mental block when I was trying to think of her name. You guys have never had it happen before. You don't know what you're talking about. It's not. I just got done doing 2 hours of radio. Now we're doing a 1 hour podcast, guys. It's hard to think this much.
I would like to take this moment. Would you like to project where Oklahoma baseball and softball would finish in the SEC next season? Just off the cuff now, while you're already in the.
Let's see. This year's OU team would probably finish second in the SEC.
Baseball.
Okay to say, nobody's going to get mad at me for that, right? They did lose to Ole Miss. I don't know.
Yeah, they did finish runner-up to an SEC team. So, yeah.
Softball, no, I think we're all on the board there. OU softball would win the SEC just like they win the Big 12 and every other conference.
Incredible.
They would win the Olympics and gold medal in the Olympics.
I just read that on Facebook that they watched the Team USA that played, and they said the OU fan on Facebook, our girls are better than these girls. Probably in a lot of areas they are.
Probably would be at least competitive at the very least. That's for sure. Elsewhere, softball, one last note. Teriya Coleman hits the transfer portal. Young player, just a freshman now. I think this is what I did. This news, I see this news, and it's kind of like, whatever. That team is so deep and they're so good, but it is worth noting here, she was supposed to be very, very good. I mean, number 5 player in the 2020, I guess it would have been 2021 recruiting class by extra-inning softball, number 17 from Softball America. So, I mean, she was very highly touted at a high school. Didn't really play much last year in her lone season in Norman. And now she hits the transfer portal. Again, I defer to Ryan. Was she going to be a big – was she expected to be a big part of the team? Like, how significant is this?
So when you're going through and trying to go, okay, so Oklahoma lost 5 super seniors. Let's pick starters. Like I'm telling you, Teriya Coleman would be in a position battle at DP. Catcher, she played a little bit of catcher. You got Hanson and Sophia Nugent in a position battle at first. You mentioned John. You have an incoming National Player of the Year finalist who played first at high school. And oh, by the way, we've reported this, but head to AllSooners.com if you want little nuggets and notes like this. Sydney Sanders, if you don't know the name, that's fine. She finished a runner-up to Jordy Ball for the Freshman of the Year award this year. She's also a player at Arizona State who plays first base and launched 20 bombs last year. 21, I believe it was, as a freshman at ASU. Oklahoma's in the mix of trying to bring her in She's in the transfer portal right now. So if the Sooners are successful and bring her in, you've brought in a first and third baseman from Arizona State. And that's assuming that Alyssa Brito stays in left field. You've got a really talented recruiting class come in. The numbers have not worked themselves out from COVID yet. You're going to have a couple of transfers. Like the numbers just don't make sense. So if Teriya Coleman was one that kind of looked around and said, hey, really appreciative of the opportunity, but I'm going to be in a position battle the next 3 or 4 years, as opposed to having a clear pathway to a spot, I don't think anyone is going to, either way. So like, I totally understand that, totally get that. Go find somewhere that you can play. So yes, it sucks, but again, it was too early to tell if she was going to really come into her own. Only appeared in 22 games last year. Obviously hit that home run against Prairie View A&M in the NCAA tournament, but this is not the sky is falling, anything like that, because her leaving is literally a byproduct of Oklahoma going out and continuing to bring in really great talent in both recruiting and the transfer portal.
If you think about Oklahoma softball, you think about the law of the jungle. It's kill or be killed. It's eat or be eaten. It's survival of the fittest. And you get a lot of players that come in as the best high school player in their state or the best high school player this or that, and they get to Oklahoma and they look around and they're like, oh my gosh. And some of them, to their credit, they realize, hey, I'm not going to play here. These girls are all better than me. Maybe you want them to stick it out a little bit like an Isaiah Thomas on the football team. He didn't make any noise the first 3 years, and then the final 2 years of his career, he's an all Big 12 performer. He worked through those early doubts instead of looking around and seeing the talent around him and saying, I'm not as good as them. He worked through it and got as good as them. So sometimes it just requires a little patience. And in today's world where the transfer portal is open and the NIL is available, patience is not necessarily a virtue this time around. Not knocking anybody and just saying that that's kind of the way of the world right now. It's, get yours while you can get it. Don't take your opportunity and then be a backup for 3 years.
Yeah, so we'll see where she winds up, and what I'm very interested in the level of program that she winds up. Is she kind of go somewhere a little bit smaller, or does another really big team program scoop her up and give her more of an opportunity right away? I'm very interested in that. One last thing, Diamond Sports baseball wrapping up. Clay Van Hook, third base coach for Oklahoma, has left to take over his own program. Pretty cool. He's going to be the new head coach at UT Arlington, according to Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball. Now, this is the guy, remember, that OU fans wanted fired because he messed up one play at third base. One of the most ridiculous overreactions I've ever seen from OU fans. And OU fans can be overreactionary sometimes. That was an all-timer for me, wanting Van Hook's head on a stick because of one mistake in Omaha. He was a huge part of the offense last year, hitting coach, big part of it, third base coach. And obviously he did so well that he's now getting the chance to run his own program at UT Arlington. Pretty cool for him. Now, this obviously means Reggie Wills is going to just slide right up from a volunteer assistant to a coaching staff legit spot, which is, we all talk about the impact that he had this year. So that's pretty cool. But Clay Van Hook off to the next. The Skip Johnson coaching tree has begun.
Yeah, Josh, do you have any insight on Reggie for sure? Is that what he wants to do? It hasn't been announced yet, but is that what Reggie wants to do?
That's the assumption. It hasn't been announced, but that's the assumption, that Reggie will just be elevated to an actual coaching staff spot. I don't know if that necessarily means he'll coach third. Obviously we'll see how that shakes out. But the assumption is that he'll move into his, because Reggie was obviously a volunteer assistant, and now he'll just slide in with Overcash as the other two paid assistant spots.
He's got a young son that's coming up too, right?
Several, yeah. He has Eli Willits is coming and committed. He has multiple kids that are coming down the pike that are expected to all be OU kids down the line. We were out there at practice in Omaha. They were in the cage fielding balls. They're on the team already. I mean, he has some dudes coming up. So yeah, Reggie's in it for the long haul. Apparently, to be with Oklahoma for a while.
I love hearing Skip talk about Fort Cobb too.
Right.
And it wasn't. I take it back. It wasn't Skip. It was a conversation I had with Larry Koshel over the phone while I was in Omaha just after talking to Skip. He talked about Fort Cobb, no street lights. In the town of Fort Cobb. He talked about him. The first time he'd ever been on an airplane was the first road trip they had. He'd never been on an airplane before that. And then when they got to the town they were going to play in, they got to the team hotel, and he asked Larry Koshel, "How will I know which hotel room is mine?" And he said, "Well, they give you a key, and it's got your name and room number on it." Wow, really? That's awesome. I didn't know that. So, yeah, good for Reggie. If he slides up and takes that job, I covered him a little bit in college, and so got to know him before he got real big in the major leagues, obviously. But yeah, happy for him if he takes that job.
Well, if you have success, this is going to happen to your program too, right? Like you want to have your assistant coached because that means that you're doing something really well. Obviously, making it to a champ series, come to a couple games short, but this is the natural progression of what it's like to reform and remold into a top program.
Absolutely, and I would be shocked if we don't get a UT Arlington in Norman game next year, probably early in the year on like a Tuesday. They've played before. That seems like an absolute lock to happen. So we'll get a little bit of a reunion there next season. All right. I think that's everything. This show was a little all over the place. It was a little hectic, admittedly. Blame Baker. I guess blame the Browns for being the Browns and dragging this thing out until early July. But I think we weathered the storm. We found our way through it. And hopefully everything was coherent.
Watch out for recruiting commitments today and tomorrow. They are apparently coming down the pike as we speak. Yeah,
AllSooners.com, place to be. We have tons for you on the recruiting. We started a depth chart preview series is off and running as well. We did running backs yesterday, linebackers today. Offensive line is coming tomorrow. So be sure to check out those each and every day. Kind of just a really good way to get updated on, okay, who do we got in one place? Transfers coming in. Who's still here? Who's gone? Great way to keep up with that is that series. So recruiting, that series. Baseball Media Days are coming up next week. So we have a lot for you on AllSooners.com. Again, just 59 days until the season opener, Oklahoma and UTEP at the stadium. Going to be fun. Looking forward to it. So that's it for us. I don't know when next week's show is going to be. Just keep up with us. Look out for it sometime next week. Media Days being on Wednesday, Thursday tosses a wrench in it. So we'll figure that out in due time. But be sure to watch out for that show. And all the podcasts, obviously, on Spotify, Google, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Amazon-enabled device. You can just say, Alexa, play the AllSooners podcast. It's also posted on our website, AllSooners.com. You can click on the playlist on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. For Ryan Chapman and John Hoover, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll catch you guys next time.